What's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Side Guys Football Forum. I am one of your co-hosts, Armin the Side, joined as always by my good friend, my good buddy, the other half of the Side Guys, Mr. Tad the Side. And Tad, we're going to dive into some DFS talk here. We're getting into Week 5. We did this last week, just talking about some daily fantasy sports value players. Just, good value, bad value. I mean, there's a good mixture here. So let's sort of jump into this here. Who's your first quarterback or first running back or any player that you have that you think just for fantasy purposes, for daily fantasy purposes, just, good value, bad value, anything in between, just who's your first guy that you want to talk about?
Well, first off, I just have to say, as the reigning 1-0 champ in the Decide Guys Football Forum of Daily Fantasy Sports, you should really listen to my advice here because I know what I'm talking about. I mean, I absolutely smoked you, I have to just brag about that.
We'll come to that towards the end of the episode, but yes, that was some good fun there. But
achievement.
Let's dive into your first player. Who do you got?
All right, first player. This is a guy, look, I was a huge doubter of his going into the season, but god damn is he proving me and every other football analyst wrong, and that's Daniel Jones, good old Danny Dimes, over with the New York Giants. I mean, you look at what this guy has done this season, it's absolutely incredible. He's currently ranked as quarterback number 6, which, look, I am very confident in saying that no one else saw it coming. So he has earned this spot, though, because he has 4 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, with 2 games at 30 rushing yards or more. So he is making things work with his legs. He is not, killing it over the air. His passing yardage numbers aren't, anything to brag about, but they're also not terrible. So he's a pretty solid, safe quarterback. And I use the word safe because, look, you look at all these games he's had, he's only had 2 turnovers. He had a fumble in week 1. He had an interception last week. Which, like I mentioned, it's his first interception of the year. So he is taking incredibly good care of the football. He's being careful. He's making the most use out of his legs. He's a good quarterback. It's weird to say Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. He's a top 10 fantasy quarterback. So he is playing the Dallas Cowboys this year. And look, they have allowed 17 or more points in 3 out of their last 4 games. So is this Cowboys defense improved? I think I said this exact same quote like 2 weeks ago. Yes, but it's not hard to improve over absolute crap. So, look, here's the thing. I know that Dallas has been getting a lot of turnovers, largely thank you to Trayvon Diggs, who, by the way, if he is not your lead front runner for Defensive Player of the Year, you're doing something wrong. Like, that guy has been absolutely killing it. He's at a pick in every single game. Anyways, so will Daniel Jones probably have a turnover this week? Probably. But I think that with him being so careful, it will probably only be 1 turnover. And look, I think the streak of, solid secondary play may end here for Dallas because Daniel Jones is just so dynamic with his dual threat of he can run it, he can, pass it. He reminds me a lot of, I'm going to say this, and I know people are going to freak out. I'm not saying he's this good. I'm just saying this is what his stats remind me of. It's Aaron Rodgers-esque, where he'll get you. Well, I know. Shut up. Hold on. Let me justify this real quick. He will get you 20 to 40 rushing yards, right? Like he won't. He's not a Lamar Jackson type, where it's like, okay, he can score you 2, 3, rushing touchdowns, but he will get you a solid amount of yards that will get you those 2 or 4 extra points, maybe rushing touchdown to add on to that. And his passing number, and here's where the Rodgers thing, I need to step back from that a little bit. His passing numbers won't blow you away, but they'll be good enough to get you points. All this to say, Dallas's defense, still a little iffy. Daniel Jones playing the best year of his career, bar none. So you look at what his price is, it's $6,000. That's ridiculous. Most quarterbacks worth starting are going for $1,000 to $2,000 more than that. The fact that he's still stuck at $6,000 is only because of his name. That's it. If any other rookie quarterback or, kind of aging vet was playing this way, if Ben Roethlisberger was having this type of season, which if he wasn't sucking, he could have. I'll step back to Aaron Rodgers thing. This is a Ben Roethlisberger season he's having. That's a better comparison. If Ben Roethlisberger was doing this, he'd be $1,500 more expensive. So Daniel Jones at $6,000 against a crappy Dallas defense, go for it.
You also have to think about the fact because I mentioned this earlier, just if there's garbage time, because this is why Jalen Hurts is doing so well too, is that if there's garbage time and Dallas Cowboys somehow get to this monstrous lead and Giants have to just play catch up, this is where Daniel Jones can sort of flourish in that garbage time, and that's where we rack up fantasy points. Garbage time is good time to be a fantasy quarterback there. So, yeah.
Garbage time is where us fantasy players live.
Exactly. So you'll get the rushing yards. You also get some of those passing yards as well. So, yeah, even if this becomes a one-sided matchup and the Giants just are not in control of this game at all, you can still hope for that garbage time, and Daniel Jones can rack up some points that way. So, yeah, very good value there at only $6,000 for sure. I'm going to bring up a guy that I actually brought up during our waiver wire episode. So turn back to listen to that episode, to hear about some of the other waiver wire players that we talked about. So it's Mac Jones, New England Patriots. He's only $5,700, and he's playing the Houston Texans. And I brought this up before, but the Texans are allowing the fifth most yards in the league and also the fifth most points. And coupled that with the fact that the Patriots are third in the NFL in passing attempts, this is a really good bounce back game for Mac Jones, especially when they're coming off that tough loss against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Sunday Night Football. So you can afford to spend a little bit less at a premium position like the quarterback position for your DFS roster. So then you can spend a little more at some of the other positions. You get a really good running back matchup or a really good wide receiver position, because you have to roster 3 receivers in a starting standard roster for DFS in, daily fantasy sports roster. So, you can look at something like Dalvin Cook versus Detroit. I think he's going for like 8100, so you could add him to your roster. DeAndre Hopkins versus San Francisco, I think he's going for like 7600. You can afford him. Or Stephon Diggs versus the Kansas City Chiefs, because I think that's going to be a surprisingly high scoring game. I think it's going to happen. So you can afford to put Stephon Diggs into your roster to couple up with Mac Jones, because you're paying a little bit less at the quarterback position. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on Mac Jones, since I brought him up before, but just coupling it with just a good waiver wire addition, he's also a really good DFS play because of the affordable salary there. So what are your thoughts on just a little bit here on Mac Jones, Tad?
I really like it. He performed well, and I know we talked about this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense being a little overrated, and I'll stand by that. But regardless, he still performed really well against them. That one interception he had really wasn't his fault. It bounced off the receiver's hands, it went in the defender's hands, so he really should have finished last week's game with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Still an impressive feat for a rookie, especially given the stage he was on of it's Tom Brady's return, it's prime time. Good Lord, was NBC, cranking up the drama 100% with that. But I will also say I completely agree with this, because just today I actually picked up Hunter Henry in my other league to be my starting tight end, because I'm so confident that the Patriots are going to have a good day in Houston. So, yeah, I absolutely love Mac Jones there. He may not blow you away. I don't think he's going to finish. I'd be shocked if he had a top 5 finish. But for that price, he'll get you, close to 20. I don't think he'll go over, but I think he'll get you close to 20 points, which for that price, that's a bargain.
Exactly. Let's jump into another player that you like here, Tad. Whether it's good value, bad value, or somewhere in between.
All right. I got to admit, I was hoping to hold off on saying this until at least, week 8. I'm a man. I'll admit when I'm wrong. This is a guy I told you to sell high on 2 weeks ago, but no longer. I was wrong here. But I will point out, that is the only time so far this season I've been wrong. That's it. And no, I was not wrong on the Seahawks-Vikings. The Seahawks should have beat the Vikings. They should have covered that spread. But anyway, that's beside the point. The guy I'm talking about is, of course, Chase Edmonds. Holy shit, this guy he won't slow down. He's a monster in this offense. He's finally, it only took 3-4 years, but finally has found his niche in this offense, and he's absolutely killing it. His price here is $5,900, $5,900. And honestly, it's one of the more confusing things I've ever seen DraftKings do. But hey, man, as a player, go for it. Take advantage of that price, because you look at everything he's done in this offense. He's coming off his first 100-yard rushing performance of the season, and that performance was 10 yards a carry. It was 10 yards for 120 yards. So, or 10 carries, 10 carries for 120 yards. So he actually averaged about 12 yards a carry. So he did fantastic there. And on top of that, he's averaging 5 catches a game with 20-plus receiving yards per game. And before someone calls me out on that, yes, I'm rounding up from last week where he had 19. I know that technically wasn't 20. Screw you, I'm rounding up. I'm an English teacher, not a math teacher. I can bend the rules. So look, he is just a key cog of this offense. He is getting a lot of rushing opportunities. He is a huge target. And honestly, as a DeAndre Hopkins owner in my league, it's a little frustrating because I know that's kind of siphoning off targets from Hopkins because he's so dependable from that backfield that he's going to get all these targets still. So Chase Edmonds is great. Literally, so far, the only downside Chase Edmonds is if they're inside the 10, they're going to be giving it to James Conner, which is super frustrating. But this offense is so explosive, it doesn't even really matter because you know he's going to get a solid scoring chance somewhere along that line. So I know for those of you who aren't, huge Cardinal fans, are going, that's great. He's awesome. Who are they playing? I'm sorry. I got to do this. They're playing the 49ers, and this is a really surprising thing. This shocked me when I looked at it because I knew they weren't doing great defensively. They are really not doing well against running backs. In the past 4 weeks of the season, the 49ers are allowing more than 26 points per game to the opposing team's backfields. So there's no reason to think that Edmonds' production should drop off this week because the 49ers cannot defend against the run, let alone a running back that can both catch it and run it. So look, $5,900 for a guy that could potentially go off for 15-plus points. Woo, that's a bargain.
Yeah, I don't have any comments on Chase Edmonds. We're
going
to move on to my
I feel bad. I'm
No,
sorry.
seriously, like the way the Niners defense has been playing, it's a very good play for sure because I think Niners defense has also just historically been bad against mobile quarterbacks. So I think Kyler Murray is going to have a really good day. Secondary is beat up in the 49ers defense, so receivers are going to have a really good day. So the one thing...
You think DeAndre Hopkins is going to go off?
I think he has a very good shot, but like I said, I think it may be spread around the wealth as far as like every other player will also get a good chance though. But that's why it makes me sort of a little bit worried that maybe Chase Edmonds and James Conner may be contained a little bit because they'll be more focusing on the passing game as opposed to the rushing game because the secondary is so beat up. They still have Fred Warner, excellent in coverage, excellent in run defending as well. So maybe he'll be able to slow down the effect of Chase Edmonds and James Conner. But yeah, especially when they get into situations where they need to pass to the running back as well, Chase Edmonds could definitely feast. So
they're sure as shit not throwing it to James Conner.
Yeah,
so
definitely
if they're
not.
passing
Definitely
it to a
not.
running back, it's going to be Edmonds.
Exactly. I'm going to move into a different running back, and that's actually Derrick Henry of the Tennessee Titans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this is an amazing matchup. The reason that I'm listing him here, though, is because it's the value sort of play. It's overvalued because he is $9,000. He is the most expensive player in DFS heading into week 5. And it's like, yes, this matchup, like I said, is extremely tempting to put a guy like Derrick Henry to sort of run rampant all over the Jaguars defense, especially with the Jaguars, all the drama that they're suffering. They're probably in a state of disarray heading into week 5, probably the rest of the season as well. But it's just very, very hard for me to justify spending that much money on one player, especially when you're crossing that 9,000 mark. I know it's exactly 9,000. It's like, wow, it's like too much. It's too much to depend on one guy to sort of go off for you. It's like you sort of could get some better value. I already talked about the Patriots playing the Texans. You go with Damian Harris. He's only $5,500. It's almost half the cost of Derrick Henry, and I think he'll do the same amount of statistical damage that Derrick Henry will do. Damian Harris could do that. Or you look at a guy that Tad really likes, Zack Moss of the Buffalo Bills. I know they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, and he's very touchdown dependent, but once they get into the red zone, I think he could get to. They are very bad. They are very bad. But I think what you'll see, though, is that the Buffalo offense will probably be very spread out. Very similar to what we were talking about with Arizona versus San Francisco. I think there's going to be damage through the air as well as on the ground. You may see some Devin Singletary as well. But once they get to the red zone, like you were saying with James Conner, this is where Zack Moss feasts. So definitely he could get into the end zone once, possibly twice. He'll give you good value. He costs the same amount at $5,500. So can you build a lineup against with Derrick Henry in your roster? You can, but I think just the overall return that you'll get from your entire roster will diminish because you spent so much for just one position. So I think you need to think about the overall roster as far as, making sure you're spreading the wealth across everybody as opposed to focusing on just the one player. So as great of a matchup it is, I'd avoid Derrick Henry.
I agree, actually, and this is coming from a Derrick Henry owner. But for $9,000, more than I'm most likely paying for my quarterback. I didn't look, but I'm 90% sure that
I don't think, like I said, he's the most expensive. So there's no quarterback that is more expensive than him. He is the most expensive player.
Yeah, so okay, I get one in an episode, right? So if I'm paying $9,000 for running back, that motherfucker better be getting like 180 yards and like 3 touchdowns.
Not even 180. He has to cross the 200 bar.
Yeah, and if he's not, well, and here's the ridiculous thing is I could see Derrick Henry doing that.
It's possible. It's very possible.
But is he probably going to do that? Probably not, because that's a historic performance. So yeah, no, I'm with you. If you're paying that much for a running back, he better have like an all-time weekend. And while I like Derrick Henry a lot, and he has lived up to the hype, shocker, Tad Desai says Derrick Henry is good. How about that for a headline? But I am totally with you. If Derrick Henry finishes with 2 touchdowns or less, it was a waste of your money. You can find a better deal. You can play a little bit smarter than that. So, yeah, 100% stay away with him with that price tag.
You have to think about the return on investment, and it's just too high to pay for Derrick Henry. So, yep, avoid him if you want to. But, yeah, if you think he's really just going to have a historic performance, then, I mean, by all means, go for it. And, yeah, we'll just see what happens exactly happening on week 5 on Sunday against the Jaguars. Let's get into another player here, Tad. Let's get who else you got?
So, this is my last undervalued player for this week, and that's Libiscus Chanult. I said that right?
Finally, yes.
Yeah, I was about to say, he's literally the namesake in the league that Amar and I are in. I mispronounced it in front of the Athletics fantasy writer. That was great. That was
fantastic.
That was a top-tier Tad moment. But Libiscus Chanult was one of my favorite picks for, kind of underdog, surprise player of the year. Oh, man, that did not go well. I dropped him after week 2. He really wasn't doing much, but here's the interesting thing is DJ Chark leaves last week due to a broken ankle, and I was not cheering or anything, but obviously I hope DJ Chark can recover. But this is prime opportunity for Libiscus Chanult to finally take over as that surprise player we all were expecting him to be. And you look at what he did after Chark stepped out of the game, he kind of stepped up to that mantra. So he had a career-high 99 receiving yards, 6 catches on 7 targets, and a single rush for 11 yards. So it's still yet to be seen if that was just a fluke, but I don't think it was. Chanult is the best weapon they have because you got to remember, everyone was like, okay, all this Etienne news ever since they drafted Travis Etienne out of Clemson that they drafted Etienne to be a slot receiver. By the way, I'm so happy everyone's caught up with what we've been saying since post-draft. Like, the fuck is Urban Meyer doing?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on here? Like, what a trap. I mean, I love it. As a Colts fan, I'm sitting there, like, eating my popcorn. Like,
of course.
I'm literally the Michael Jackson meme of just, like, eating the popcorn. I'm like, this is great. But, like, my God. That was the first sign of, like, I'm not quite sure if he knows what he's doing here. Because he drafted Etienne to be a receiver, but Etienne's a running back. Anyway, I'm getting off track. But the whole thing is, once Etienne went down, people were like, okay, Chanult's going to fill in there. But he didn't. I think now he will. So was last week a fluke? Maybe, but I don't think so. I think literally just out of pure necessity, Chanult's the best weapon that they have on that offense now. And yes, I'm saying Libiscus Chanult is better than James Robinson. Fight me, Jacksonville fans. Fight me. All 5 of you, fight me. I will still win. So I think just out of pure necessity, a lot of this offense is going to run through Libiscus Chanult right now. So his price is $4,800. I really do think just by pure volume, by pure amount, he's going to touch the ball. He will make the most out of it. And let's not forget they're playing the Titans, and they're the worst-ranked pass defense in the league right now in terms of fantasy. So really look out for Libiscus Chanult if you're kind of trying to look for that flex option or that final receiver spot to kind of fill out and you're a little tight on money. I think Chanult's a good bet at $4,800.
It's not a bad play. It's not a bad play, especially, like you said, with injuries sort of suffering for them, and they sort of need to rely more on Libiscus Chanult. I think that's a very good play, especially in a divisional game. We sort of mentioned that you sort of bring your best when you're playing in a divisional game, and yeah, I could really see Libiscus Chanult getting more involved and having a pretty good day, especially at that price. It's a pretty good, flex play for sure, or yeah, like you said, a third wide receiver option for your roster. I'm actually going with another very cheap option, and that's Darnell Mooney of the Chicago Bears. They're playing the Las Vegas Raiders.
He's only Bears. Big news today.
Exactly. It's only $4,700. And here's the news. Justin Fields has been announced as the starter for the rest of the season. Maybe. I mean, with Matt Nagy, it's just so hard to tell. Who the hell knows what's going to happen next week, future weeks. It's just, yeah, I really don't know. But for now, heading into week 5, as they play the Las Vegas Raiders, Justin Fields is a starter, and you have to look at the fact that when they played Detroit, Justin Fields went to Darnell Mooney quite a bit in that game. He was the clear leader in targets in that game, and it wasn't even close. He had 7 targets. Next closest player was both Cole Kmet and Allen Robinson. They tied with 3 targets. So, I mean, Darnell Mooney was being featured in this offense. Justin Fields was just looking his direction more often than not. He had a great game. He had 125 receiving yards off 5 receptions. Fortunately, he didn't get into the end zone, but he still had a really good day. And I think that will continue for his second straight week, because I think with all the attention that the Raiders will probably give Allen Robinson, this just means Darnell Mooney will be able to run freely, and I think Justin Fields will definitely look in his direction again. And like I said, the fact that he's under $5,000, that's just cherry on top of the sundae, in my opinion. Like, I think this is a really good shot to play Darnell Mooney for his second straight week, and I think he can really strike it big for his second week in a row.
Real quick, are you a Sunday guy or a banana split guy?
I'm definitely a Sunday guy. Definitely a Sunday guy.
You monster.
But hey, I love banana splits too. It's all good. Ice cream is just, you can't lose with ice cream. It's very similar to pizza. You can't lose with any type of pizza. You can't lose with any type of ice cream.
if any of you are Hawaiian pizza eaters, you're dead to me. I'm just letting that, I'm putting out that information right now. So, everyone, thank you for tuning into the last episode of The Side Guys. It was a sweet ride while we were at Hawaiian Pizza, man. Come on.
Hawaiian pizza, though, with jalapenos. You got to throw on the jalapenos on it.
All right, so, I like
it's
it.
Legit.
We're Indians here. We like our spicy. So
exactly.
You bastard.
All right. Well, we'll save this for our separate food podcast, but let's jump it. Let's jump into
Food Network coming at you next Tuesday.
Let's jump into the last player, Tad, really quick. Who's one more guy that you got?
All right, man. Hey, you had an overvalued player. I'm going to do an overvalued player.
All right.
This is probably not too shocking to most people. I'm going Odell Beckham Jr. He is currently valued at $6,000. Why?
Even that's too high. Yeah.
I don't get it.
Yeah.
Because look, I mean, he's only averaging 9.6 points per game. The Browns don't pass as much as other teams, which is exact carryover from last year. And I don't understand why. I think this is his 3rd year in Cleveland. His chemistry with Baker Mayfield is just still not there. Like, I feel like every single pass Baker throws him is behind him somehow. Like, it could be a go route. It would still be behind it. Like, I didn't even know that was possible. But Baker still makes a pot. I don't know. The whole point is, like, look, OBJ, the whole experiment with OBJ in Cleveland is, in my opinion, unmitigated failure. It has been a disaster. It's been a failure. Find whatever synonym you want for that. But there are literally, and I mean literally, close to 24. That is right. There are 24 receivers that I can find on DraftKings that are either around his price or cheaper that I would take over OBJ. Now, you may be saying, but Tad, I thought you said you love targets, and he gets targeted a lot. So why are you saying, avoid him? And you are right. Normally when a receiver gets targeted a lot, I'm like, hey, this is a good time to take advantage of this. But you look at who they're playing instead of Los Angeles Chargers. I almost said San Diego Chargers. I'm sorry, the city of San Diego. R.I.P. Not the city of San Diego. San Diego's still doing strong. But anyway, the Los Angeles Chargers. Don't shake your head. That was a good bad joke.
We're so close to the end. Don't derail now. Come on.
That was a great bad joke. Screw you. But anyway, the Los Angeles Chargers secondary is really good this year. You look especially, shout out to Asante Samuel, who should be, I was, going hard for Trayvon Diggs as Defensive Player of the Year. Asante Samuel right now is probably my pick for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He's been absolutely killing it. Makes me feel old, the fact that I watched his dad play when I was a kid, but that's another, discussion. Bottom line is that Chargers secondary is so good. They have held receivers under 120 yards. And this isn't just like, they've held one receiver. The entire receiving core, 2 out of their 4 opponents, they've held their entire receiving core to under 120 yards twice this season, and they've only allowed, this is crazy to me, 2 touchdowns to receivers all season. 2 touchdowns to receivers all season. Here's some of the teams they played. They played the Chiefs, they played the Raiders, and they played the Cowboys. You play 3 of those teams and you only allow 2 touchdowns. Oh, by the way, the Cowboys, none of their receivers caught touchdowns. It was 1 against the Chiefs. 1 touchdown to a Chiefs receiver and then 1 to a Raiders receiver. That's all they've allowed all season. This Chargers defense is legit. So, look, you have a dysfunctional relationship between the receiver and the quarterback going against one of the best passing defenses in the league. For $6,000, just don't ignore it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I think it starts and it ends with the fact that the Cleveland Browns are a run-first team. Like, I mean, that just sort of ends it right there. It's like you don't need to discuss all the other stuff. It's great.
I almost put Kareem Hunt as my overvalue because Kareem Hunt is around like $7,000, I think. And if you look at his stats the past 2 weeks, not Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb as overvalued because Nick Chubb's around $7,000. Kareem Hunt is starting to snipe some of those carries away. So it's more of like it's your typical receiver thing, but with 2 running backs instead. Yeah, because that's the focus of the Cleveland offense.
Exactly. So avoid Odell Beckham. I think that's very good advice that I think everybody knows for sure.
This goes for both you if you own him on your fantasy team and the Browns. Both of you, just trade him already.
Exactly. My last guy is actually a guy that you brought up before, Tad. That's Kirk Cousins of the Minnesota Vikings.
Love him.
He's playing the Detroit Lions this week, and I think for the price as well, I think he should be rostered in every single, tournament lineup that you have or head-to-head lineup or whatever it is. It's only 6,500, and the guy is absolutely killing it to start the season. I mean, before the dud against the Cleveland Browns, Cousins had at least 25 fantasy points for 3 straight games to start the 2021 DFS season. I know with fantasy leagues, scoring's a little different depending on how you decide to adjust your scoring, but for DFS purposes, at least 25 points for 3 straight weeks, that's consistency that you can depend on, and I think I could see that again happening against Detroit, if not higher than 25 points. I mean, he is top 10 in passing yards, 10th, top 10 in passing touchdowns, 7th, and top 10 in passing attempts, 8th. So, I mean, Lions are allowing 16 yards per completion on average through the first 4 weeks of the season. I mean, this just seems like the perfect team to tear apart through the air with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Tyler Conklin, KJ Osborne. I mean, so many great guys that Kirk Cousins could throw to. Like I said, 6,500. This is just an excellent price to pay for a starting caliber quarterback in your roster. I mean, this just feels like highway robbery, seriously, because Minnesota will for sure give Dalvin Cook his fair share of carries too. Like, I mean, I think he's gonna have a really good day as well, but Kirk Cousins will be able to work off of those carries, use the play action, hit Adam Thielen deep, hit Justin Jefferson deep. It's just going to be a one-sided affair between the Vikings and the Lions. Unfortunately, Lions are just still not going to be able to get their first win of the 2021 season because Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. But yeah, Kirk Cousins should be in all of your rosters. I really like him this week.
I completely agree. I disagree with you that it's going to be a one-sided affair just because Detroit plays it so hard. But
that is true. That is true.
But that plays into Kirk Cousins' advantage because if it's close, that means he's going to be passing him more. So yeah, I already talked up Daniel Jones earlier this episode, so if I had to pick, if you say, okay, you can't pick Daniel Jones, who's another underrated quarterback this season, Kirk Cousins by a mile. It's 1A and 1B with them. I love them both. I think it was last week I was talking up Kirk Cousins. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I absolutely love that pick.
Exactly. So those are some of our value guys, whether it's overvalued somewhere in between or undervalued as well. So, use the advice as you see fit. I mean, definitely some of these guys can help you with some money in DFS, whether you're playing head-to-head. And yes, we sort of teased this earlier. Me and Tad are doing our head-to-head challenge.
Wait, Cat wants to give his opinion. What do you think, buddy? What do you think? You're not sure? All right, keep going, Mark.
So we had our first contest last week. Unfortunately, Tad was able to escape with a win by a mere 0.68 points. Mere 0.68 points. It really came down to the wire. Is between Keenan Allen versus Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow was able to do a little bit more than Keenan Allen was able to do. He was able to close the gap as well as overtake me. So Tad is ahead right now, 1-0. We apologize. We weren't able to get rosters up onto our Twitter timeline quickly enough. We'll make sure to do that for you guys this week.
I had watched Texas get killed by UT. Not killed, we lost by 5, but still.
So, yeah, we'll make sure to do that for you guys this week. But yes, as of right now, Tad is ahead 1-0, and we'll see what happens heading into week 5. But yeah, we appreciate everybody tuning in for the episode here. And hey, if you like that sweet shirt that Tad is wearing right now, I mean, just click the link below in the comment section. You can find the link to the t-shirt. You can buy it on a dark t-shirt like Tad is wearing right now. You can find it on a lighter t-shirt as well. If you're not a big dark t-shirt kind of person, you can find it either way. And hey, here's the big one right here. I got the ticker up there right now. Follow us at all the various Twitter handles. We're going to be doing so much stuff with YouTube stuff, the podcast as well. You got my handle, I'm the Side 23, Tad's a Tad the Side 94, and the show handle, The Decide Guys. And hey, thanks for watching. Tune in next time.